way too many people, especially young people, spend more time planning their weekends than they do planning their career, which is insane to me because why would you not spend disproportionate amount of time on the things that will impact your life the most, which is one of those things is your career. Everyone talks about how money compounds over time, but I think the greater asset that compounds is learning. The faster I can pay down that ignorance debt to learn the skills, adopt the character traits and beliefs to become that person, the faster I will get to where I'm going.
Yeah, man. So I normally don't start off a podcast like this, but given the fact that you just wrote a book on it and it's fresh on your mind, just kind of wondering, like, what's your thesis or philosophy behind, like, how you live your life and what you do?
Interesting question. I'd say I believe there are two types of people in this world, people who wait and people who don't. And the people who don't, the people who are not afraid to start, the people who are not afraid to ask, usually end up getting what they want. The analogy I like to use is a locked door. Many people walk past the door thinking that it's locked, so they never try the handle. But there's a different subsection of people that do try the handle. And what you'll find is oftentimes the door is unlocked.
Mm, I love that. And is that like what the entire book is about? Kind of, let's just jump right in and do a breakdown of kind of like what it is, why you wrote it, and then we'll dig into like your background and how you got here.
I wrote this book because honestly, everyone says it, but this was the book I wish I had when I was just starting out. I know I'm still early on in my journey, but there was a lot of roadblockers and mental limiting beliefs, um, and things that if I knew earlier, I think I would have gone even faster. And so this book, you can just do things. It's about the permissionless approach. It's about realizing that you don't need permission, you don't need the perfect resume, you don't need decades of experience to create opportunities in your life and your career. And so in the book, I talk about it's split into two sections: preparation and creation. Preparation is about uh, developing the skills, beliefs, and character traits to stand out and to develop and to prepare yourself for the creation. And then creation is about that visibility aspect. Now that you have the skill set, how do you actually go about reaching out to the people that you want to reach out to and connecting with them?
Do you like in the book, do you break down like specific tactics or like exactly to dos, or is it mostly like story driven, pulling from other people that have kind of like followed the path that you're trying to break down?
It's a little bit of both. I am purposely tried to not make this like a tactic, cheat code, self-help kind of book, because
Yeah.
those are the books I don't like. And so I wrote the book that I like to read, which is filled with a ton of stories because I remember stories better than I do random cheat codes. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but then also in the book, there is some actionable frameworks. I talk about the tag method to reach out to your favorite entrepreneur. I give different cold email templates, and different.
What's the tag method? I never heard about that.
Yeah, the tag method is actually from Charlie Hohen, and he used it to apprentice under Tim Ferriss. And it's step one is target. Who do you want to reach out to? A lot of people try to reach out to people who are at the top of the mountain already, the Elon Musks, the, whatever, Beyonces, the Taylor Swifts of the world. Um, but what you actually find is that people who are 1 to 2 steps ahead of you are more approachable and can help you more because they remember what it's like to start where you are at. The second step is audit, and this is where you do the work up front. Because if you want to work with your favorite entrepreneur or get a job opportunity, you have to show two things. You have to show number one, that you want the job, and number two, that you can do the job. And the best way to do that is to do the work up front, to show, not tell. And so, a quick example of doing an audit, I did this with Noah Kagan. I wanted to work for him and help grow his newsletter. And instead of asking, hey, I'll work for free, or how can I help you, or what do you need from me? Um, I showed
Yeah, the
him,
generic stuff that everybody usually says.
yeah, it's like, hey, I'll make I'll make some, video clips for you. It's like, okay, I have to figure out who you are, figure out if you're skilled enough, and figure out how you can help. So instead, can you just sell me the clips, right? And so just make it, the question I always ask myself is, how can I make this a no-brainer for the other person? So that's what audit is about.
Mm.
And then last step is gift, and this is about how do you reach out to the person. There's obviously different methods to do it, and we can break them down. But I think the The number one method I say is attack space. I like to use the analogy of Steph Curry. He's so hard to guard because he keeps moving and he finds pockets where everyone else isn't. And so let's say you want to reach out to you. Let's say I want to reach out to you. You know, you're pretty big on LinkedIn, and I'm sure your inbox is flooded with different requests. But now you're trying to go hard on Instagram, and you're just starting to get serious about it. So maybe I'll DM you on Instagram instead, and just finding different ways to reach out to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That first part about like reaching out to people that are like one or two steps ahead of you, I think that's something that I preach about whenever people ask me for advice on like how to build an online presence or like what do I talk about online. I always say like just think about yourself a few years ago, like not you 10 years ago, or not you like when you first started off your career, just more of like what do you wish you knew just a few years ago, because that content is going to be fresh in your mind, it's easy to produce, and that person that's just a few steps behind you is going to find it so much more valuable than somebody that's at the very start of their career who like might not be able to relate as much. So
100%.
I like that you weaved it into your process. um are there any stories that you liked in particular? I know you did a bunch of research for the book, but any in particular that stand out?
I think one of my favorites is actually from Derek Sievers. So now he's an author and entrepreneur. But when he was 17, he wanted to be a musician. And so he was an incoming student at the Berklee School of Music. And he saw one day in the newspaper an ad for like a local recording studio by this guy named Kimo Williams. And Kimo Williams was a Berklee School of Music alumni. And so he saw the phone number and he called him up and said, "Hey, I have this question about music setting, something super niche." And Kimo said, "Instead of just telling me the answer, why don't you show up at my house tomorrow and, I can go over the curriculum with you and I can show you everything." And so Derek shows up the next day and Kimo proceeds to teach Derek the entire semester's worth of curriculum in 3 hours, an entire semester.
Yeah.
And then so, the lesson is the traditional system is designed to accommodate the average, and that's what it has to do, because most people are at that median. But if you're more driven, if you're more ambitious, if you have more desire than the average person, there's no reason you can't go faster. And so the lesson of that is there's no speed limit. And actually, Derek applied this there's no speed limit concept, and he skipped out of 6 semesters worth of college, and he graduated at 21.
Damn. I mean, you're a perfect example of that too, right? Like you're 19 years old, right? And you just wrote a book and you have more experience in tech and content than a lot of people that I know. So maybe we could just break down like how the heck you got here and where this comes from. Like, did you learn this from a parent? Did you learn this from like a friend, Twitter, or X? Where does this come from, and kind of like how did you get here?
So the story starts the summer of COVID 2020. Um, I was playing video games in my bedroom for 5 hours a day. And honestly, I
How
remember,
old were you at this time?
gosh, 14, 15.
Damn.
Yeah. And I just remember looking in the mirror one day and being disappointed in what I saw. I was like, I'm wasting away my life. I know I'm 14, but I was just, those were the thoughts that were going on in my head. And so that day, I literally Googled how to make money online. And one of those things was start a YouTube channel. So I started a music promotion YouTube channel where I promote underground artist songs to help them get exposure on their music. And I posted a video every single day for the entire summer. The channel ended up not going where I wanted to go, but it did teach me a lot about video editing and packaging and how to write a title and create a thumbnail. And I dove into the world of content creation and I fell in love. You know, the channel didn't end up going where I wanted it to go, but one of the last videos I posted was a motivational music video. And, it got a decent amount of views. And I remember scrolling through the comments, and one of the comments said, "I don't know why this feels so big, but this song motivated me to get out of bed and take a shower." And like, damn, that just hit, like this was during COVID. Like everyone was like kind of down and depressed.
Depressed, down. Yeah.
And it just made me realize that little old me from my childhood bedroom could actually impact and inspire people from around the world. And so I fell in love with the game of content.
And from there, how did you progress? What was your next step? Um, I'm assuming you were like went into high school shortly after that. Were you working while you were in high school?
So I entered high school, and I would say I had a portfolio of failed experiments. I started several Instagram theme pages. I started that music promotion channel. I even tried to start a clothing brand. None of those adventures took off the way I wanted them to take off. And so I realized, there's something missing. I'm obviously missing a piece to the puzzle. And so I was like, you know what? Why don't I work for my favorite company and try to learn from them so that when I want to start my next adventure, I have a better toolkit to to grow. And so I reached out to Beehive
Yeah.
because I had my newsletter on Beehive, and I from an outside in perspective, the way they were shipping was absolutely insane. I think it was like a new feature every week.
Wait, you were what, 15, 16 at the time? You had like, how did you even find out about the newsletter world? What was your newsletter about? Like, when I was 15, I was definitely not thinking about like, building a newsletter. So trying to figure out where this comes from, you know?
Yeah, so as I was engaging in those portfolio of failed experiments, I got to know different people, Sam Parr, Sean Puri, Nathan Barry, like all these people who were, gurus in the, experts in the online business space. And they're all telling me like, yo, you got to start a newsletter, you know, building on social media is like building on rented property. You got to own your list. And so I started an email list. I think the original I don't remember what the original name was. It was probably like Jay Yang's letters or something. And it was just me documenting my journey. Hey, I did this today. I learned that today. Here's something cool that I read. And that was it. And I would write one every week.
Nice. And so you love the product and you decided I'm going to figure out how to work here, even if I'm 16 years old.
Yeah. I wanted to work for the company, so I went to the Beehive website and I looked at their like applications tab. And unfortunately there was no intern position. So I was like, man, how do I make this work? At the same time, I came across this YouTube channel or podcast called Backstage Careers by Jeremy Mary,
Mhm.
and he would interview, the people working behind the scenes from, the world's greatest entrepreneurs and creators. And I was inspired by that. I learned how Brandon Zhang worked with Jack Butcher and how all these other guys were finding the backdoor entrances to the career that they wanted. And so I was like, let me try and apply that. So instead of asking Tyler, like, "Hey, can I work for you for free?" or whatever, like, I sent him a cold email with 3 sample projects of what I would work on over the summer. Like, "I can do this, I can do that, or I can do this. Which one do you like better?" And I'll do it, like, completely for free. Like, I'll work in my own silo. I won't bother you at all. Just let me do this for you. He loved the email, and then 2 weeks later, I was working with Beehive.
Can you talk about the project that you did and how long you worked there?
Yeah. So the project was Beehive 101. It was a free course to help Beehive's users better understand, unlock, and maximize the Beehive platform. And so I learned a lot about newsletters. I learned a lot about the Beehive platform by creating that course. And so I spent this entire summer there. Um, but then after that, I realized that there was this, I was so interested in newsletters that I wanted to dive even deeper. And so I started a newsletter called The Newsletter Nerd, where every week I would nerd out about some kind of niche newsletter topic, whether it was growing a newsletter or monetizing a newsletter or setting up the design template in Beehive. And so I went in and started that
Mhm.
project.
It's interesting because like you started so many, like you said, failed a portfolio of failed projects, but and like I've done this too. Like I did try doing the clothing brand thing. I did like random inspirational Instagram pages. I've done, I tried the like direct to consumer, like shipping stuff from China and all that. Like I've tried all these things, and in the moment, you're like, why am I doing this? Like when it's not working, you're like, this is so stupid. Like I'm wasting my time. But like now, like years later, looking back, it's just like, oh yeah, you kind of have to go through the mud in order to like see more clearly or like pick up these random niche skills. Like the other day, I put up a tweet saying like, being a DJ and party promoter in San Francisco made me a better marketer because there's nothing like being rejected. Like if you want to be rejected online and you're afraid of, not getting the impressions or the reach or the engagement, that's one thing. But getting rejected in person, like hundreds or thousands of times when you're asking somebody, hey, you want to come out to a party? And they like start cussing you out or they're like straight up ignore you or give you dirty looks. Like, and in the moment you're just like, this is kind of stupid. Why am I standing on a corner just like throwing out, you know, party flyers? Um, but, now looking back, it's just kinda like you're grateful for all those little like, side quests, side hustles, even if the opportunity was like, maybe 3 out of 10, in the long term. So I'm assuming nothing ever happened with that newsletter. What was the next project that you worked on? And, let's close the gap to how you got to here.
Yeah, I sold that newsletter to Matt McGarry, to his newsletter, and
No, good
then
shit.
I
Yeah.
found out about Noah, and so I wanted to work with Noah, so I sent him a 19-slide pitch deck detailing everything that was wrong with his social and email funnel. Here's what you're doing. Here's what Cody Sanchez is doing, or here's what someone else is doing that's doing. Like, here's how you can tweak it to do better. Um, and then I also sent him 9 ready to be published pieces of content. Like, all you had to do was click send. I said, if you love it, like, let's work together. If not, no worries. So I engage in the tag method.
And you do this via email? Like, I is this a email DM or, like, how are you reaching out?
I actually reached out to Jeremy, who was working with Noah at the time. He was
Mm,
Noah's head of YouTube. And so that's what I talk about in the book.
gotcha.
A lot of people try and reach out to the guy, but there's a lot
The
of
number 1,
alpha
yeah.
in reaching out to the guy's guy, the second in command, the chief of staff, the research assistant. Um, and so I reached out to Jeremy. He texted it to Noah. Noah loved it, and became Noah's head of content
At what, 17 years old?
at 17.
And what does like a head of content for Noah do? I know he has like a shit ton of social platforms. He's like basically live everywhere. He has YouTube, he has IG, X, LinkedIn. Um, like what did you do in that role? Anything that you learned in particular, and are you still doing it now?
The main project that I was in charge of was growing the email newsletter. So I joined right before he launched his book, Million Dollar Weekend. And so the goal was to get as many people onto the email list as possible before the launch. And then post launch, it was also growing the newsletter, making sure people were hearing about Million Dollar Weekend. So I was in charge of mainly the written platforms. So Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Um, I think the biggest lesson I've learned from Noah on the content side is data-driven growth. Before working with Noah, I was what I like to call a qualitative marketer, which simply means like I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like I had no clue. And so from Noah, I learned how to track different metrics, how to double down on what was working, and how to cut what wasn't working. And like it sounds super simple, like, oh, duh, double down. But like I just didn't even make that connection at the time. And so working with Noah, he taught me how
Yeah,
to actually become a marketer.
yeah. Because otherwise, you just jump from like experiment to experiment. Even if one thing's working, you want to try something else. When the smarter thing to do is like try to refine and see if you can like optimize it, whether it's like cost per spend or like conversions or clicks or whatever the goal is. How what actually ended up working best? Like, are there a handful of things that work to convert people to the newsletter?
With Noah, there was two things. Number one was meaty story threads. Um, we use what I call the name test, which is if someone covered your profile picture and your name, would they be able to copy paste your content onto their feed? And so a big point with Noah's stuff is like, how can we write content that only Noah can write? Either it's about his story and his journey, or it's about someone else, but through Noah's perspective and through his lens. And especially with the rise of AI, like if you're just gonna write some generic like seven habits to change your life, like that's gonna be drowned out in the noise. And so if you want to stand out,
Yeah.
write content that only you can write. The second thing was um, I call them post CTAs. So the newsletter came out every Thursday, and then on Friday we would have a teaser and then a link to the newsletter underneath. Super simple, did not go viral, but that wasn't the point. It converted a lot of people to the email list.
Yeah. And it still worked even though like engagement usually isn't great whenever you include links or like are there any other hacks that you guys would use like, check out my story for something or like link in bio or you just did like the link in the second tweets?
Yeah, link in the second tweet. Super simple. It's like, can you tease like what is the newsletter? What was this specific edition about? Why should the reader care, and what will they get out of it? And then link to the newsletter.
Well, I guess the content has to be good. Otherwise, like people wouldn't want to keep even finish reading that first tweet or convert to the second one. So makes sense. Are you still doing that gig now, or what are you kind of working on?
Yeah, so just recently stopped working with Noah. Um, I've also been running my own social media ghostwriting agency, working with other founders behind the scenes.
Nice.
I don't really talk about it often, um, but another big news, which I actually haven't shared anywhere publicly, I think this may be the first, is I just recently joined acquisition.com to help with Alex and Layla's social media content. So I'll be moving to
Nice,
Vegas
dude.
in less than a month to help out with your social content.
Dude, that's exciting. Congratulations. Um, this kind of feels like an obvious question if I was listening to this podcast right now, but you're obviously entrepreneurial. You've been entrepreneurial for a really long time. And I think I know the answer to what you're going to say, but I want to ask it anyways is like, why continue doing 9 to 5 gigs when it seems like you have what it takes to kind of build something for your own? And you obviously tried, these little side hustles and projects. They didn't go anywhere, but doesn't mean that your next one can't. And obviously, you wrote the book too, but books aren't great for business unless you're like supplementing with speaking and something else that you can monetize on top of. But why not just go all in on your own project and continue doing these head of content or like supporting roles for somebody else?
Yeah, it's definitely something I've wrestled with. I've scaled my ghostwriting agency to multi six figures, and I'm taking a significant pay cut to work with Alex and Layla. But the truth is, I believe there are seasons of learning and seasons of earning, and I think right now I'm in a season of learning. I think everyone talks about how money compounds over time, but I think the greater like asset that compounds is learning. Alex talks about this idea of ignorance debt. Not making if you make $50,000 a year and you want to make $1,000,000 a year, not knowing how to make $1,000,000 a year is costing you $950,000 a year in ignorance debt. And so the faster I can pay down that ignorance debt to learn the skills, adopt the character traits and beliefs to become that person, the faster I will get to where I'm going. And so while, from an outside perspective, it may seem like a step back. Why would you drop your business to go work under somebody as a 9 to 5, as a corporate wage monkey? But I think the greater truth is it's more like a bow and arrow. You're taking one step back to, ideally take 10 steps forward.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I think your journey is the smart one, and I did something similar. So I've always been like very creative and entrepreneur myself, but early on in my career, I got a job at LinkedIn, moved up to San Francisco with literally like 2 suitcases or 2 duffel bags, and slept on a couch, worked that gig, and just like built my entire career. But while I did that, I always like had a side project that I worked on. So I also wrote a book while I worked at Snapchat. I DJ'd, like I said, every weekend when I was in San Francisco. I started like an events company with one of my best friends, and we would rent out like venues and just like get hundreds of people to show up and made really good money. Like if we did that full time, I'm sure we could have made more money than we were making in our day jobs because we were very like entry level. Um, but I always thought like and we had this advice really early on too from a mentor. They're like, as long as you're learning in your role and you feel like you can't get that learning anywhere else because it's like hands-on learning and stuff that you can't really read in a book or take in a course, then the ROI on your time is really valuable. And on top of that, it's like the networks that you're going to be building can only be built from like internally. Like all the DMs and the podcasts and the events you attend won't equate to the same like relationships built versus if you're like working side by side with these people. Um, and it actually helped us tremendously when I did a startup a few years ago with one of my best friends. We were building a social media food app, like a social app for food lovers, basically. And the network that we built at LinkedIn while working there, that was like the biggest pool of investors that we got is from those people because they saw us like grinding. They saw our character. We went out with them. We worked side by side with them. Um, so I think what you're doing is really smart, and I'm excited to see like what this next phase for you is going to be. Let's jump into the book a little bit more. Can you just break down some of the chapters or some of your favorite parts, and let's keep it as actionable as possible for for the listener? And you could even throw in a few stories if you'd like.
I think the most actionable part would be that tag method. I think most people have this sense of entitlement, this sense of the world owes me an opportunity, the world owes me a shot. But the truth is, if you are, especially if you're early on in your career, like no one owes you anything, and it's on you to go make that happen. And so that tag method is the way to do that. It's to show upfront, that you are someone who is serious, you are someone that's driven, and you are somebody that they want on your team. In terms of the actual cold email, I will say there is a framework that I like to use, and it's um it's a little bit contrarian, but I like to use like a super wacky strong hook, like I've made an irreversible decision, or you changed my life, or big fan, um, because like your cold email won't work unless they open the email, and so it can be slightly clickbaity, because you want them to open the email, and then the rest of the cold email is then justifying that opening. And so let's say I used the big fan subject line. So that's what I did with Beehive. I said big fan of Beehive, and then you use a personal opening, quick idea for your company. I've been using your newsletter platform for the past 2 years, and I absolutely love it. And then you state, why are you reaching out? Um, I have this idea. I have 3 ideas for this project, for this over the summer, this internship that I want to do, and I think that'll help you do X, Y, and Z. Um, and then you make the ask. So, hey, I recorded a 3-minute Loom video, or I made this presentation about how to solve this problem. I'd love to help you do it. And, for example, here's how I recently achieved a similar result for someone else, or maybe for yourself.
Nice.
So for
Social
me,
proof. Yeah.
before Beehive, like I did create my own mini course on how to create a content system. And so I was like, hey, I've built a course before. I know how it works. I know how to structure it. I know how to write the material. I know how to record it. And so it was shown, not told. And then you end with your gratitude. Like, thanks so much. Really admire another specific thing about them.
It's awesome. And the book itself, you self-published, or did you go with an agent? Did you even pitch agents?
I pitched a few agents. It didn't really make the economics didn't make sense because I already wrote the book. And so
Yeah.
I decided to self-publish. I mean, it was an a crazy amount of money for just the publishing part, which I realized was you just click a few buttons and then it's live. So decided to self-publish.
Yeah, exactly. And you're only gonna grow in terms of like your personal brand and everything that you're doing. So a book lives forever. So I think that was a smarter route to do it. Um, I'm also kind of fascinated with like your distribution. So like part of the thesis of everything that I'm doing, this podcast, internet empires and everything, is that like building an online presence is one of the highest leverage uses of your time, especially as AI gets better and better at replacing previously high skilled work. So, I'm 32. I remember when I was like 18, 19, I had ideas for like building a tech company or a mobile app. And like I literally had to pitch software engineers in college to like partner with me. And like, you're always dependent on somebody else in order to like produce an idea that you have. And now we're at the phase where like it's not there entirely, but like, people with zero coding experience can build basically whatever they want. Um, and I think it's getting really, really, really good, like much better, like every single day. And so like, I was just started to think of like, what's the one thing that maybe AI can reproduce, but it would be better if it fuels it for you. And the thing that I came up with is like distribution, own distribution, building an online presence, building a brand, like those three things. Um, will allow you to have like more leverage when you decide to build a project and put it out there because you have like automatic distribution and acquisition channels that somebody else who's a great engineer and can build maybe even a better product doesn't have, and just like not even a fair match. So let's talk a little bit about like your thoughts on distribution, your social audience, your online presence, like how it breaks down, and then we'll go from there.
First off, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I truly believe the better AI gets, the more important a brand or a personal brand becomes. Because like what is a brand? A brand is simply your reputation. And so when anyone can build anything for anyone to anywhere, why would they trust yours versus someone else's? Like, it's not going to be the features, it's going to be the reputation, it's going to be the trust that you've built. And so I see
Yep.
creating content online less of creating content and more as creating relationships at scale. And so that's how I view my content. I'm not trying to go viral or, preach a certain way or a certain thing that everyone should do. I simply want to share what's worked for me to document my journey. And if that resonates with a certain group of people, that's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. Um, what is your favorite distribution channel right now, and like how are you investing your time and energy? And then I want to break down of like how the heck do you do all this stuff? Like obviously you're young, so you have the energy, but yeah, let's start off with the distribution outlets that you have. You have the newsletter, right? You still doing that?
My favorite is probably the newsletter. I just,
Mm.
I've been doing it. That's the
I thought you were gonna
longest
say Instagram.
project. It's the longest project I've been doing besides the Instagram. But Instagram, I paused and I stopped for a while. The newsletter I've been doing
Yeah.
consistently since 2021, I think. And so my brother doesn't get it. He's like, why are you giving yourself home like a weekly homework assignment? But I just love
Yeah.
writing. And I love the fact that this artificial deadline of it has to come out every Sunday it holds me accountable. Helps me clarify my thoughts as I write it, helps me explore new ideas, and it helps me connect with a lot of the people who want to stay updated on what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, and what I'm learning. So that's number one. Number two, if I had to choose one, I would probably choose Twitter or X. I just think the quality of people that I've met through Twitter, I've met
Yeah.
lifelong friends from Twitter, which sounds insane to say because I remember telling my parents, I'm like, I have internet friends. They're like, what? Um, but I think Twitter is just like, there's no other place where you're going to get raw, real time thoughts from some of the world's greatest entrepreneurs. And so,
Yeah.
I just gave a speech to a college entrepreneurship group. And I was like, raise your hand if you're on Twitter. And like, no one raised their hands. Like, no, you got to be on Twitter.
So
Like, most people think Twitter is for
so
sports, news, or politics, but there's this subset of Twitter that you and I both know that all these
yep.
incredible builders and creators and entrepreneurs are sharing ideas and building things and helping each other out. Like, it's incredible. And so that's number two. A close third, close second, I don't know what the phrase is, but number three is Instagram. I've recently been going hard on Instagram. Um, it's been incredible because I think with Instagram, the the algorithm is a little bit more friendly than Twitter. I think with Twitter, it's more you either reach everyone or you reach no one. But with Instagram, I think there's
Yeah.
more of a natural push regardless of
Like
what it is.
virality.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the evolution? Just because you've been growing a shit ton on IG, I like put your account into like an analytics tool, and I think you grow over like 110,000 just this year. So like in the last 5 months, um, what has the evolution been like? Like in terms of content or themes of what you were putting out there? Because I went back to your very first post. So what has the evolution been like, and what's working today in terms of growing the account?
The account started because I really just wanted to share inspirational quotes that were changing my life. And if you scroll all the way back, I'm sure you're probably thinking like, wow, those are some cliche, like, it's a great day to have a great
Yes.
day, right? Like some cheesy quotes. Um, but at the time, at my awareness level at that time, that was what I needed. And so I think the content has evolved over time. The feed looks so different, but the fundamental thing that has stayed the same throughout the entire journey is I'm sharing messages that I needed, and it's reminders to self. And so right now I'm writing a lot about, getting into fitness and the mindsets of what does it mean to be someone who's doing things. To be like an entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to start a business. To me, an entrepreneur is like a mindset. It's a way of acting. And so,
Yep.
a lot of cool things have happened. A lot of not so cool things have happened. And so, like, how can I remind myself to stay the course, to keep going, to push through regardless of what circumstances happen, good or bad?
And is the is the growth hack I mean, the evergreen growth hack that works for every social platform, no matter, like, what algorithm changes are, is basically creating highly shareable content that other people wanna share with their audiences or their friends or their family. Um, and so, like, is that, like, what you're using to grow the account? Is like, "How can I create something that I like or I'm thinking, but also position it a way where somebody else can easily post it on their story or share it with their friends in their group chat, and therefore you reach, second and third, tiers of people that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to reach."
If we break down shareable, um, people share when they people share things when it elevates their status with their peers. And so there's this amazing quote that I love from, I think his name is Blair Warren, from the One Sentence Persuasion course. And he goes, people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help throw rocks at their enemies. And so in your content, if you can do one of those five things, the chances are people will share that content. And so I think just by the fact that I'm writing reminders to self, when I write, it's to me, it resonates with other people because I'm not trying to posture. It's just really what I think. And so obviously it won't resonate to everyone, but it resonates to those people who are in that similar journey or in that similar experience.
What's your process for, like, content creation? Do you bulk create? Do you do it after the gym? And then I wanna dig into your schedule, like, how you manage your time, basically. So, process first.
Process, I like to use the three C's: collect, curate, and connect. First step is to collect cool ideas. So I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I scroll Twitter way too much. And I just bookmark things. I save them to folders. I'll write them down. And then curate. I will try to connect those dots and find the patterns. Why did this piece of content stop my thumb from scrolling? What about the hook stood out to me? What about the message resonated with me? And then connect is then how can I now bridge that gap and create my content? In terms of the actual creation process, I do like to batch content a lot. I just find that in the past, I had a daily writing habit where I would write something and post something that day, and that process helped me as I was building the skill of writing. But now I think I've gotten to the point
Yep,
where
I agree.
I can I can create multiple in one sitting and have the quality stay the same. So that's how I do it now.
Nice. What does their like, your weekly schedule look like or your daily schedule or just a breakdown of what it's like to be Jay for a day?
Yeah, daily schedule, Jay. I wake up. Nowadays, it's a little bit later. I'm in college. I've definitely changed my schedule a bit. So I wake up 8 or 9, and then I try and get about 1 to 2 hours of my own personal writing or personal projects done. And so for the longest time, it's like when I wrote my book, when I was doing the research, when I was putting together the chapters. And then throughout the day, I have classes. So I'm a business major. My classes are not super tedious by any means, and so I tend to just work. I go to the lecture and I just work there, uh, and so I'll do a lot of my client work or a lot of my current work with Alex and Layla uh, in class and throughout the day. Take a little lunch break. Usually go to the gym afterwards, 1 to 2 p.m. Get a little brain break, and then I'm back to work. Have dinner with friends. Right back to work, and so I work probably 10 to 12 hours a day, and it's a lot for most people, but it's because I genuinely love what I do. I I
Yeah.
I text my family, like, any updates or cool wins or things that are happening, because 'cause I'm now separated from my parents as I'm in college, and I think I text them, like,
Yeah.
7, 8 times a day because I just love what I'm doing. There's
Nice.
just so many cool things happening.
Dude, I'm surprised that you said that you're in college. Why continue going to school versus just doing, it seems like you have a lot of momentum with all these other things that you're doing. So why go to school? Then are you enjoying it? What's that experience been like?
So, number 1, I am actually dropping out after this semester, so I am dropping out to then move to Vegas to work with Acquisition.com, but I had that big debate before starting freshman year of college because, a lot of things were going my way. I was working with Noah. I had another full-time job offer with a pretty big media company. And so I was like, do I take this full-time job offer? Do I go to college? Like, which path do I choose? And what I ended up realizing was, uh, a lot of times in our space, there's like a knock on college. You can learn everything on the internet and like there's no value in college. It's a waste of money. But I couldn't knock it until I actually tried it. And I think it's much better to have gone than to have not gone and always in the back of my mind kind of wished or regretted, like, I don't actually know what it means to be a college student. So
Yeah.
I ended up going. And if I had to summarize the entire experience, I'd say really, really fun. I've met so many incredible people my age, like lifelong friends, other cool people doing internet stuff as well. And I think it gave me the space to reflect on what I want and what I don't want in my life and in my career. It gave me the freedom to experiment without having to worry about the stresses of being an adult right away, of like rent and taxes and this all the stuff you have to deal with that I don't have to deal with. Well, yeah, and I'll have to deal with it in a month. But uh,
Yeah.
I definitely don't regret going to college. And I think now I hope we'll look back and say I don't regret leaving as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. Smart move. I mean, I went to college and some of my best friends, I had my wife there. So I think the relationships is one piece and the other piece is like the experience itself. So being able to work on projects and have like no downside or being able to just like do whatever you want and like do cool shit and like if you're working depending on like your family dynamics, but if you're living at home, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of do random things because you might get like input from family and all that. So I think it's smart. I don't think it is for everybody, but I think for the right personality and like for people who are kind of do what we do, it can be helpful because you build like a network that you wouldn't be able to build otherwise, as quickly as you can and as wide as you could. Are there any people in particular that you look up to or that you aspire to be like, or qualities that you like in particular from them?
I take inspiration from a lot of people throughout my life, and I think the more so is like qualities. I'd say is if I had to summarize what the good life looks like for me, it would be a play off of Naval's quote, which is a fit body, a calm mind, a house full of love, meaningful work, and enough wealth to not have to worry about it. And those are very broad, vague terms that I don't think will ever truly be fully accomplished. I think those are infinite games that you play for your entire life. And I think the only goal is to continue staying in the game and continue progressing.
Nice. What are you working towards? What is all this? You have like a broader vision. I know you're doing really cool jobs. I know you're doing really cool projects. You're writing a book, but like, what's the end goal? I mean, everything that you just shared right now, like that quote was like a banger. I think all of us want to strive for that. But is there anything else that you want to achieve or want to work towards?
In the medium term, it's completing my 4 book series. So this was book one. I have 3 more to go.
Oh shit, 4 books.
So that is
Wow.
my medium term goal on the side of working on these other cool projects.
Why write 3 more books? Why not turn them into a course or an event series? Yeah. What about like the physical aspect of a book is attracting you?
I think exactly what you just said. There's something about being able to hold your ideas in physical reality. Uh, I was almost brought to tears when the first author copies came in the mail, and I was able to physically like hold my book, and it was awesome. Like that's the only way I could describe it. It was an incredible, surreal feeling, and I think if you talk to anyone you meet, I think many people will say a book changed their life more so than a course or a coaching program or, a tweet.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
agree.
more so a book because there's something real and tangible and thorough and in depth about that. there's something about working on a project for months to years, rewriting and re-editing and restructuring and making sure it's a stellar piece of work. And so to me, writing a book is that craft.
Yeah. What like what is your upbringing like and like your family dynamics and how does that play into like everything that you do? I think it's just like outside looking in, it's pretty cool that you're able to do all this stuff. And from as like a parent for a parent or for like a family member, they're probably like, wow, this is pretty risky. Or like, why are you doing this? Just stick in school. Like you're gonna eventually get a better paying job or whatever. But like, what are your family dynamics like, and how do you have like that love and support to do what you do?
I have to say that I have the most incredible parents of all time. And I know everyone says that, but I truly believe that. There's this quote from like Kobe Bryant, like he spent summer playing basketball in Philadelphia. He was 13 years old. He didn't score a single point all summer. Not a free throw, not a layup, not a nothing. And his father sat him down and was like, I don't care whether you score 60 points or whether you score 0. I'll still love you no matter what. And just having that strong backbone of that foundation of love just gives you that safety net to take those bold risks because like they've got your back. And so my parents have been instrumental in my journey. My mom is the greatest example of love and care and empathy and patience and work ethic. I remember when I was growing up, my parents used to tuck me to bed, and then I go to sleep and they leave, and then in the middle of the night you got to go to the bathroom, right? And so I go try and go pee, and then I just remember seeing like this sliver of light underneath the door. I was like, "What is that? Who is that?" And so I knocked, and it was my mom. And she later told me she had been working all night and that she worked every night after we'd go to sleep. She tuck us into bed and she worked from midnight to it's like 2 p.m. or something. And well, it was actually our bedtime was like 8, so 8 to 2. And then she'd wake up before us and then make us breakfast. And so I just think that there is no greater way to show love than to demonstrate it. And just like I love this quote, if you couldn't tell someone you love them, would they still be able to feel that love through your actions? And just like she demonstrated that. And same thing with my dad. When I was first starting my business, I had no idea how to set up Stripe, how to set up an LLC, how to accept payments and start a business bank account. Like all these things that no one ever actually talks about online. They talk about, the fancy Stripe payment screenshots, but they don't talk about the back end stuff. And so he was instrumental in helping me set that stuff up. And I 100% would not be here without both of their support, their patience, and their care.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like a passion of mine is like setting highly productive and successful people. Like that was basically the thesis of the book that I wrote when I was working at Snap. There's like a 7-step framework to achieve any goal. And I studied like almost 1,000 hours of research on the world's most successful people, like Kobe, Oprah, and everybody. And the last step of the framework is basically your network and foundation and the people that you have in your life and how that impacts or detracts the ability for you to achieve your goal. And so part of that network is obviously family. So I think family is one of the most influential or can be the thing that really holds you back. So it's awesome to hear like how supportive um your family has been because I think not everybody has that and still want to achieve for more. So I think it's a matter of like kind of building your own family outside of family if you have to, and getting that support however you can. And I think like X or Twitter, like for in some ways is helpful for that, building relationships online. Taking those relationships offline and going to events and meeting people and like going to college for a semester or 2 semesters if you have to, and like meeting people and building a friend group or joining clubs and organizations and all that. So I think relationships and the more online that we become, relationships IRL like become more and more important, because it's so easy for us to just spend dozens of hours online, and forget to kind of like catch up with people in person. Um, yeah, I think just a couple more questions. do you have any general advice for anybody who wants to do this like internet thing? Like you said, we are kind of like in this niche corner of the internet, or where people kind of talk about building an online presence, building a business, making money online, working from wherever you want, chasing your dreams. But for maybe younger Jay, 3 or 4 years ago, like, or even somebody else that's older than you but still younger in their career, in their progression, any general advice or anything that comes to mind?
I mean, the phrase that I would tell them is the title of my book. You can just do things. You don't have to wait. Like, hurry up. You can do things. Like, there are so many young people throughout history that have achieved great things, and they were only recognized for it when they were older. And so you don't have to wait until you've graduated college or have a PhD to start doing real projects and working out and doing things. Um, Actionably, there's a 4-step framework that I've been playing around with, which is how to create opportunities. Step 1 is figure out what you want. Reflect on what you want. Uh, what are the things you like, what are the things you wanna work on? Who are the people you wanna work with? Where do you wanna live? How do you wanna feel when you work? Do you wanna work inside or outside? Do you wanna work with people or work by yourself? Like, truly reflect on those questions. Um, and it's you're not gonna get it perfect the first time you reflect on it, but it's the act of reflecting, the act of being intentional about what do you want? Not what society, not what parents, not what your teachers tell you. What do you actually want? That's step 1. I think way too many people, especially young people, spend more time planning their weekends than they do planning their career, which is insane to me because why would you not spend a disproportionate amount of time on the things that will impact your life the most, which is one of those things is your career. Step 2 is, okay, now that you kind of have a general sense of what do you want, what do you need to learn in order to get what you want? What are the skills, beliefs, and character traits you need to adopt to become the type of person that will achieve those goals? Step 3 would be who do you need to connect with to learn those things to then achieve what you want? And so that could be surrounding yourself with digital mentors on Twitter and following their work and taking inspiration from their journeys. It could mean apprenticing under an entrepreneur like Noah Kagan or Alex Ramosi and trying to find ways you can work for them or work with them um, to learn from them. And then step 4 would be, how can you make it a no-brainer? Now that you've identified, okay, here are the type of people that I need to surround myself with. I like to think of it as like the golden circle. There's you in the middle. The top is like, okay, who's someone 1 to 2 steps ahead of you? The sides are like, okay, who are my peers? Who can be my intellectual sparring partners that I can bounce ideas off of, and we can see progress of each other's journeys. And then who's someone 1 to 2 steps behind you that you can teach and help and pull up? Because the act of teaching is one of the greatest ways we can learn. We all know this. And so that growth circle is an incredible way to think about who do I need to connect with to learn the things to achieve my goals. And then step 4 is how do I make it a no-brainer, which is what I talk about in the book. How can you do the work up front? How can you engage in the tag method? How can you attack space or send a public DM instead of a private DM? How can you stand out? And so, if you can do those 4 things, I think you're well on your way to a successful career.
Are the other 3 things what the next couple of books are gonna be about?
No, they are not. That is just a different framework
No,
that I've been
okay.
playing around with.
Nice. Any hints for what they're gonna be about, or you wanna keep it under wraps?
I think for now I'll keep it under wraps. But maybe we'll have another conversation another time when the second book comes out.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, thank you for coming on the show. It's pretty inspiring all the stuff that you've done already, and I like your hustle. I like your mindset. I like everything that you're doing online. So I'm here to support. If there's anything I can do to help, or people listening that you need help with, now's the time. So I think obviously everybody check out your book. It's available on Amazon, right? You can just do things.
You can just do things.
Anything else? Anything else we can help with?
That's it. If you want to buy a copy of the book, that would be incredible. If not, I think we all know somebody in our life that feels stuck, that they feel like they need permission to start that project or to ask for a promotion or to reach out to that coach or mentor. And so if you know that person, maybe even don't send them a book, just say, hey, like you got this, you can just do things. And I think if we can do that, we can create a lot of positive ripples out into the world.
Agree. Dope, dude. Thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.